Who built Britain's railways?
Look out! Look out! This...
Oh, Jesus! I say. By the way, I have my own train here. Look at that. There. Isn't that fun? And I have sweets which I can load on and deliver to any particularly interesting answers this evening. So there's an extra incentive. However,
this is turning into my perfect house. More toast, please.
Wallace and Gromit. But you have first to address the question of who built our railways.
Richard Branson.
Oh, no. It's not elephants. Large creatures were trained to trample down areas of Britain to be very, very flat. The railway mouse.
Well, you're right, actually. That because... Well...
Sweet. That's a treat. That's a treat.
You're right, actually, comma, in saying... in
saying words. Big comma.
In saying that railways had to be flat in the days when they were built in Britain, which were the very earliest days because we were the country that invented the steam locomotive and the railway system. And they weren't powerful enough engines to go up hills or to go even really round bends, so they had to be straight and they had to be flat.
Were they built by the wrong type of builder?
Well, at the time, they were thought they were the much-mocked navvy. They were called navvies. They were mostly Irish.
Yes,
and they were an extraordinary example of man muscle. They really were. It took a year to train a navvy.
Whoa,
you fed them on meat and beer. No Dagenham smiles there, very tightly done trousers. And they...
A Dagenham smile?
The Birmingham to London track took 5 years to build and was the equivalent in work of building 1.5 Great Pyramids. It was an astonishing feat. Astonishing. These people were incredible. As I say, it took a year to train them. They lived on beer and meat, and they could outperform any other manual labourer. I mean, farm workers would be exhausted after a quarter of a day that the navvies could do.
I hear once that the Trans-Siberian Railway, which was meant to be a straight line, the Tsar got a ruler and he said, I want the railway perfectly straight, like this. And he got the ruler and he drew a line like that, but his fingers were over the edge. And in a couple of places, it did a big sort of detour like that. He went, build me that, go away, you, like that. And they went, oh, we better build it like he said. So they had to build two very big curves,
That's a lovely thought again.
That's a lovely thought.
I'd always assumed that the first railways that was...
All very well. Hey! We've got a sweet.
Oh! Let's get someone on the scene and go straight there now to see what's happening. It's absolute pandemonium, Stephen.
Oh, you had your sweet yet?
I haven't had it yet.
Oh, I'm not very good at being a back controller.
The right place. Can't be a virgin training.
Why, for a sweet and a point, why are they called navvies?
Navigational engineers.
Oh, very good, very good. I'm so impressed.
Is that right?
They were responsible for digging what were called the internal navigation system, which was the canals. That's how they first came over, for digging canals. And then when the railway arrived, they did all the embankments and the tunnels and the extraordinary earth movement involved. There were horses were used for taking away the spoil, but everything else was human muscle.
Elephants as well, did you realise?
No elephants were used in the making of that railway line.
There were, just little ones. So London to Birmingham, or Birmingham to London, was the equivalent of, what, 1.5 pyramids?
1.5 Great Pyramids, supposedly.
If only we'd put that to a vote, we would have had 1.5 pyramids. Didn't think just a half a pyramid, yeah, we just thought we'd leave it.
We have the top half of the pyramid.
Well, that's a pyramid. That's a pyramid, the top half, isn't it? It's only if the bottom half...
That's what I would choose.
It's an odd platform. So just keep slicing your pyramids.
Can't have a sweet. There you are.
Gentlemen.
Oh, no!
Thank you very much.
Curses.
Who is the only athlete in the history of the Olympic Games to get a personal mention in the closing ceremony?
Achilles?
No, we're talking about the modern Olympiads.
Paula Radcliffe.
Olympus.
Eddie
Not
the Eagle.
Paul Radcliffe.
Jesse
Sorry?
Evans.
Eddie the Eagle.
Eddie the Eagle is the right answer. What year was it?
92? 88?
88 is right. 88 is absolutely right. And what was his discipline?
Ski jumper.
He embodied the spirit.
He kind of just fell off the end of it,
Yeah.
didn't
Didn't
he?
he embody the
There
spirit?
he is.
Yes, there was nothing wrong with it. Look at this. Could you do
I
this?
couldn't do that.
And they all laughed at him. Look, why?
Well, you didn't laugh at little Titch, you did much the same.
No, he was...
Yeah, if he could put his own hat on, that would be different.
Juan Antonio Samaranch, the leader of the IOC, he said, at this Olympic Games, some competitors, he probably said, but I'm going to go on any further, have won gold and some have broken records, and one has even flown like an eagle.
Flown like an eagle.
Like an eagle. Aquila. But sadly, they then legislated so that people like Eddie would not be able to participate anymore. They said that in order to participate in the Olympics, you had to be in the top 30% in your international competition, or one of the top 50 of the world, whichever. And so it closed the gate on inspired amateurs like Eddie, which is surely against the spirit of the Olympics. I mean, bless him, he had to wear glasses which frosted up. He was in a country which has no ski jumps. In England. He was just practising without having any ski jumps to practice on.
Just coming off the roof of his house.
Well, basically, I think he probably was. Why was he picked for the team, though?
Because there wasn't anyone else.
Yeah, because he was the only one who volunteered, which I think is absolutely wonderful. But they've done so. Now, who else was there who was double E? Not just Eddie the Eagle. There was another one a few years later. Do you remember?
Oh, there was a swimmer.
Eric the Eel. Eric
that's
the
right.
Eel from Equatorial Guinea.
People had to hang around. They were putting the lights out.
Well, bless him. When he arrived, I'm not wishing to sound patronising, but I just said bless him, so there's no way out. But he said he only learnt to swim 8 months before the Olympic Games. And he'd never seen an Olympic pool before he stood on the edge of one.
Got to it and went,
Ready?
bloody hell. Miles.
Oh, well, there you are. It's right. It's Eddie the Eagle, who, despite his acknowledged entertainment value, resulted in a rule called the Eddie the Eagle rule that excluded colourful amateurs from the Olympics. Hard to imagine anything less in keeping with the original ethos. Why didn't they build a railway at Slough?
Slough?
Why not?
The town where I grew up?
Is there no station in Slough?
Well, there is now, I suspect, is there?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
But there's no railway.
It's a start.
When the railway was being built through that particular part of Buckinghamshire, they were told they couldn't build a station in Slough. In fact, what happened was the train they would disregard it by stopping, and people would get on and off, and they would sell tickets in the pub. But who was it who said, we won't have a station here? What school is nearby?
Oh.
Yes.
I do know it. It's Eton.
Eton.
Eton College, of course, is there. And yes, they thought the boys would be tempted to go into London. There they are. Bless them.
And take drugs.
And, well, visit prostitutes and so on.
What will happen the first thing they do? There's a train. Prostitutes!
I'd like a prostitute super saver, please.
That's why...
This prostitute seems to be a woman.
Bloody hell, Asher. It's seriously unfair. No. Come on, actually.
What am I meant to do with
really.
these?
No, come on.
Oh, really?
No. There was a traveller's handbook that advised women should put pins in their mouth when trains went into a tunnel so men didn't kiss them. To protect themselves from unwanted kissing, they put a pin in their mouth.
It's very sweet, though, to think that kissing would be the first thing that men would...
They come out of the tunnel and the bloke's got a pin in his cock.
It's a very direct approach you've got to courting. I'll just pop this in her mouth. She'll come round, I'm sure, yeah.
Oh, God.
It's dark, she won't even know it's me.
Magnet! Magnet! Anyone a magnet?
Here's a big question. In 1903, Thomas Alva Edison released a movie whose title consisted of 3 words, 2 of which begin with E. What was it and who starred in it?
I know, we've nearly forgotten them, but here it is.
Oh, elephant in the room. Well, you are absolutely right. It was actually called Electrocuting an Elephant. He made a film in which an elephant was electrocuted. Hooray! You win those points.
How many points?
10 points.
Oh, 10 points.
Now, why would Edison want to electrocute an
He wanted to
elephant?
electrocute the biggest thing he could find to show that he was the best at electrocuting.
Well, actually, it was the reverse, you see. He believed that his direct current was safe and wouldn't hurt people and didn't electrocute. He wanted to destroy the reputation of alternating current, which was owned by Westinghouse. So he used the word Westinghoused to mean electrocuted. And this elephant, Topsy, was sentenced to death on Coney Island because Topsy had killed 3 human beings and was going to be hanged, or was he going to be poisoned? What was going to happen to Topsy? I know. It's quite a picture, isn't it? And... Poor elephant. So Edison won the right to electrocute him in public to show how dangerous it was. This thing you're letting into your homes will kill an elephant. And he filmed it as a PR film.
Yeah, it's like
to
a
show
snuff
people.
film.
A snuff film, exactly. Yeah. He gave it 460 grams of cyanide of potassium in carrots. He had wooden sandals lined with copper put on her feet. It was a she-elephant, I'd say. And then a current of 6,600 volts sent through her body. She died without a trumpet or a groan, apparently. And he filmed the event, trying to persuade people to refer to electrocution as being Westinghoused.
He just went nuts and trampled the...
No, he hid in their rooms when they came home. He jumped out. And he got away with it for months.
Wearing a Jason mask.
Nobody would have caught him. He left
Cunning
few
disguise.
few telltale signs around the flat.
Big elephant-shaped hole in the wall.
Yeah.
The first murder on Topsy's hands was killing a trainer who'd frankly deserved to die because this trainer gave a lit cigarette to eat.
He killed him.
Yeah, quite right, yeah. Don't do that again. Yeah.
I like the sound of Topsy.
Yeah.
Don't mess with her, she's a bit temperamental.
Do you know that some elephants are evolving now that don't have tusks? Did you know that? Because the ones with tusks get poached, right? Get shot. So the ones that with smaller tusks, right, don't get shot. So that gene of the small tusk gene lives on more frequently, and eventually elephants are going. And there's elephants being born now that don't grow tusks.
I like that. I like it.
And there's some tigers now that have been made of Axminster.
Now stop it. Nice animals, really. Not as sexy as certain horses, but... What were the last words of General Sedgwick in the wilderness of Spotsylvania?
He hasn't got a mouth. So there weren't any words at all, unless he wrote them down.
In a convenient bubble that he carried around with him.
Maybe he had a little notebook of bubble-shaped things and he just...
I'll tell you that the year is 1864. What war was going on then?
Franco-Prussian War.
That was a tiny bit later.
The 100 years, 30 years, 25 years.
Civil, American Civil.
The American Civil War.
The
So we're
American
talking
Civil
about
War.
yeah, well done. Thank you for cutting that
The
off.
American Civil War.
It is the American Civil War. That was not, however, the question.
Spotsylvania is in near to Pennsylvania.
It's Virginia, in fact. It's in the state of Virginia. He was actually with 100,000 of his own men. He was a part of the Union, i.e. the Yankee Army, facing 52,000 Confederate troops.
Oh.
And they were just getting ready for the battle. And there were snipers.
Was he saying easy?
Almost that equivalent. It was hubris. It was one of the most extraordinary last words
This will
ever
be over
spoken.
in 5 minutes.
We'll be back in time for Deal or No Deal.
Let me tell you now that you could have played your elephant cards.
Well, I will then.
Nah.
Too late.
He actually said, why are you dodging like this? They couldn't hit an elephant at this distance. And he was shot under the left eye and fell down dead without finishing the word distance.
Ooh, you'd be annoyed, wouldn't you? You'd be livid. You'd be shot in the eye, that's annoying to start with. And you look a fool.
Exactly.
Cheered up the troops, though, I'd imagine. I imagine they probably found that irony quite funny, as that...
Troops will. They have that sort of sense of humour.
They do, don't they? The lower orders.
He was known as Uncle John. He was very popular. Ulysses S. Grant mourned his death, said it was worse than the loss of a division. He was the highest-ranking Union officer of any kind to die in the war.
Do you think famous last words are accurate? Because I think they lie a lot of the time. It's always something incredibly witty. Like, you know, dying, that's the last thing I shall do. Whereas, in fact, I imagine they said that about 4 days before they died, and the last thing they said was, nurse! Nurse, it's happening again, I'm scared!
You're probably right. No one got either their elephant point. It may not be the only elephant bonus this
Let's hope
this game.
not.
I think you'd spent your elephant bonus at the very start.
Well, that's true. There are extra points if you can tell me. I mentioned Ulysses S. Grant, the great general of the Union Army. What did the S stand for?
Sausage.
I'd so like to tell you that that was
Simon, Stephen, Stephanie, Simone, Spanky, Spanky Grant.
Sugar tits.
Sugar tits.
You can see, I mean, the S works. Sugar tits didn't work at all. Follow me, man. All right, sugar tits.
No, actually, the S in Ulysses S. Grant stood for nothing at all. One of the biggest problems faced by explorers, as you can probably imagine, is that of language. Alan and Bill, I would like you two to imagine that you are two of the Pilgrim Fathers who've arrived on the Mayflower in the coast of the United States or America.
Right.
And I would like Rich and Sean to imagine you are Native Americans who meet them. How, you can use sign language if you like, would you communicate?
I would immediately read from the Book of Common Prayer. Hail, savage.
Hi, how are you?
What's that, Toby jug?
Yes.
Where's the pub?
Foaming pint of beer.
Humity, hapatimity, etimity, never mind the buzzcocks. Jonathan Creek. I can't believe my eyes.
Not just never mind the buzzcocks, other things as well. Do stand up. Ha 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 ha. Piano. Playing in hotels.
You think you're the first explorers here, don't you? Where do you think these eyeglasses came from?
The extraordinary thing is, between them, Rich and Bill are absolutely right. The first thing said by one of the Native Americans who met the Plymouth Brethren was, could I have some beer? In English. He asked for beer in English.
You met the Indian, did?
Yes. He spoke fluent English. He'd crossed the Atlantic 6 times. This was in 1620. America had been visited by others. The Pilgrim Fathers were not the first people to land in America by any means.
It's a trick question, wasn't it?
Yeah, his name was Squanto, the best known of them.
Yes.
But this particular one was called Samoset, and he spoke very good English.
Somerset.
What did he say then? Get off my land!
Have you got some cider?
You bloody Pilgrim Fathers, get off my land!
He learned his English from fishermen and from his friend
the
Squanto.
archers.
And from the archers, probably, as well.
Sure. Are you buzzcocks? That's what he said.
But instead of getting beer, he got cheese and a bit of duck. And they both helped the Pilgrim Fathers survive their first year because they had nothing to eat when they arrived. And all there was Maine lobster, which is now a delicacy, but they thought was hideous.
But they were in terrible strife, weren't they? And they were about to starve.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, actually, you can... here's some turkey.
Yes.
And the full...
And some cranberries.
And then they killed them all. With guns.
Unfortunately, yes. There was 50 years of peace, though. In fact, Squanto brokered a peace that lasted for 50 years. They lived together very happily. He was an interesting fellow, Squanto. He was kidnapped from his village by a British captain around 1605, which was 15 years before the Mayflower sailed. And he lived in England for 9 years. And then he returned home on another British ship. Then another British captain kidnapped him and tried to sell him into slavery in Spain. He was rescued by some Spanish friars, escaped back to London, took ship again, this time to Newfoundland, found it was too far to walk home, so he sailed all the way back to England. The following year, he signed up for an exploratory expedition to New England and crossed the ocean again. By the time he had crossed the Atlantic 6 times, he was fluent in English. They say of the Acropolis, where the Parthenon is... They say of the Acropolis, where the Parthenon is... They say of the Acropolis where the Parthenon is. That they...
all been too much. It turns out they didn't say anything at all. I think it might
They say of the Acropolis where the Parthenon is.
Everyone!
They say of the Acropolis where the Parthenon is. They say of the Acropolis where the Parthenon is. They say of the Acropolis where the Parthenon is. Fight!
Bloody hell, Stephen. This better be good.
Moving on. So, the triglyph is a remnant of the stone.
Sorry, I've just got a question. What do they say about the Acropolis where the Parthenon is?
They say.
What do they say? What do they say?
He's going to say. 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 He's going to say.
What do they say
About the Acropolis where the Parthenon is.
Can I write it down? Read it, it says it there.
Well, you've got to tell us now.
They say of the Acropolis where the but there are no straight lines. Damn, that hurt.
Do they?
Yeah.
Whatever.
More tangible now, however. How did loo paper help to win the Cold War?
Was there a shortage of loo paper in the eastern part of the world? And they...
There was a
Yes.
shortage of loo paper behind the Iron Curtain.
The loo paper was made in America, let's say, and then they didn't let the Russians have any, so they were confused.
That would have been clever, but what happened is the Russians instead used documents and all kinds of things for loo paper because there was nothing else to use. And an operation called Operation Tamarisk meant that the spies behind the Iron Curtain had to go into these bins and find the paper that had been used, because it wasn't soluble like lavatory paper, so it couldn't be used in the sewage system. So it was just thrown out in bins.
Gone right off spying now.
Yeah, you see?
This thing is quite glamorous.
It's not all glamour, I'm afraid, because in military hospitals, the paper refuse that they went through also contained amputated limbs. And the spies were complaining to their handlers back in America and the UK and France and said, you know, it's horrible, we've got to go through these bins and there's these amputated limbs, we've got to go through those as well as used lavatory paper. And of course their spy master said, oh, bring back the limbs as well, we want to see what sort of shrapnel they're using. So they had to carry around severed limbs and excreted matter.
So if they stopped going through customs, could you just open the bag?
It's a bit of a shock.
Yes.
Even for a customs officer who's seen everything.
For personal use.
Yeah. But apparently, according to The Hidden Hand by Richard Aldridge, a book that covers this, it says that Operation Tamarisk was very successful. Maybe without it, we'd still have communist Russia. Who knows? How many poles are there at the ends of the Earth?
Oh, now, obviously, now
Well,
there's clearly
that's a
some-
dangerous...
I think maybe there are four. There's the top of the Earth, and then there's the magnetic. What is that? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, it is. I'm getting how many North Poles and South Poles are there in
Two
both?
of each.
So you're saying 4?
I really tried hard.
You did try hard. You've got to use that, but take it further.
8.
Have another go.
Oh, no, I've blown all my elephant points now. 16.
It's 11. I know it sounds bizarre, but I'll try and take you through them. They're the two geographic poles, as they're known, North and South geographic pole. That's where the Earth's axis of rotation meets the surface, as it were. So that's, you know, pretty obvious. You'd think. There's the Earth, and it's spinning round, you know. There's the...
I'm just saying... I'm just not sure whether that's the best mime you could have done.
Right.
Where the geographical pole where this happens.
I was
trying to be like it's going round the...
Is that what happens when you get there, sir, is it?
Oh, well, look, OK. There are the two geographic poles.
Yes.
There's the geomagnetic poles, where the Earth's magnetic dipole meets the surface.
Obviously.
Yeah. There are magnetic poles where geomagnetic field lines point vertically into the ground in that way that electrical fields and magnetic fields do. Yes.
I want to go home now.
All right. You can. We're going to get through these. Girls never like the physics. It's odd.
Please, I feel sick, sir.
Even Polar Guy, who's kind of into this as a topic, has dozed off at this stage.
There we are. There are 11 poles, 2 geographic north and south poles, 2 magnetic poles, 2 geomagnetic poles, 2 poles of inaccessibility, 2 celestial poles and 1 ceremonial south pole. What quite interesting object is at the very end of the Earth?
Telford Town Centre. Although I would argue about the interesting bit.
At the bottom of Patagonia?
It's right down there, yes. It's the southern pole of inaccessibility.
Is it the off switch?
To stop it spinning.
Plug hole.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's most unusual. It's a bust.
There's a bust.
There's a bust.
Oh, worth going then.
Yeah. In the sense not of a pair of breasts, but in the sense of a sort of head and shoulders and front bit of a human being.
No, we didn't really think there was a big pair of tits.
It's of a living 20th century person, now dead.
A man.
Yeah.
Stalin.
Oh, the one before.
Lenin.
Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is there, right in the middle.
My
It's just
word.
bizarre. This southern pole of inaccessibility is more remote and hard to reach than the geographical South Pole. And in this very year, the destination was reached by a team of 4 Britons called Team N2I. Rory Sweet, Rupert Longston, Henry Cookson and Paul Landry. And we have one of this expedition in the audience. Mr...
Is it Lenin?
No. Mr. Rupert Longston is here. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that bizarre? Phenomenal. Rupert, how far did you actually have to travel? Because this was no mechanical power, was it?
No mechanical power. We travelled 1,100 miles in total. Some of it was cross-country skiing and then kite skiing.
Was it cold?
When that picture was taken, I think it was minus 60 degrees Celsius.
What do you eat?
Food was
food.
fairly repetitive. It was chocolate, cheese, salami, pasta, lots of it. And one day towards the end, when we'd been eating the same thing for about 40 days, we played laxative roulette. And with one person who had laxatives in their food, we didn't know who.
Well, I bet you did.
Not straight away. The consequences were quite obvious after a while.
Does it freeze as it comes
Oh!
out? Does it into a shard of shit?
When did the Russians put that there?
1958.
Good Lord. Rupert Longston, congratulations on doing an extraordinary first and being very, very foolhardy and very brave and very brilliant.
Clearly not an extraordinary first. There was a statue there when they
No.
arrived.
They went under their own power. No one had ever done that before. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Rupert. Thank you. That's amazing.
I like the idea of that, though, the idea of going and doing that with no mechanical device whatsoever. His moon mission's going to be amazing. Give me a man up a ladder going, oh, this is madness.
My next question is about emigration. From 1884 onwards, what was the first man-made object that was seen by immigrants arriving at New York?
Yeah? It's the Statue of Enlightenment of Liberty, but it wasn't built... It's the island.
I think it's Ellis Island. Is it?
Not Ellis Island. There's an island before you get to Liberty Island or Ellis Island.
It's QI Island, one which was placed there.
Very famous. And you've missed your chance because it's Coney Island and it would have been an elephant. The vast man-made elephant was the first sight that greeted immigrants before they could see, even once there it is. On Coney Island.
We're never going to get that,
It's a hotel with 32 rooms. Built by a man called
So
Lafferty.
America knew what they were letting themselves in.
Yeah,
for.
and that was there even before the Statue of Liberty.
2 years before the Statue of Liberty, but even after the Statue of Liberty, you would have seen it before it.
So if people come in, oh, well, the first thing we're going to see is Statue of Liberty. It looks different close up, doesn't it?
The elephant
Doesn't
of
even look
liberty.
female. It's got...
Observation tower's all wrong.
Rather bizarrely, this man, Lafferty, was given a patent. He was the only man allowed to make animal-shaped buildings for 17 years in America.
He needn't have worried, really, did he?
Well, he did burn down, then he had another one, which still lasted, and is the largest elephant in the world, called Lucy. But it was also a brothel, this hotel. You can see it's there. And it gave rise to a common expression, going to see the elephant in New York, which meant, you know, going to see a lady of easy virtue.
Was it entirely a brothel?
Not entirely a brothel, but it was a pretty sleazy... I mean, Coney Island was a pretty sleazy place.
My family went over to America in the 19th century.
What was the first thing they saw when they got there?
That elephant. And my grandmother moved directly in there onto the 4th floor. But no, I went to Ellis Island and I actually... I mean, the amount of names you would not believe there. When you go through that list, because I try to find my relatives' names, and it's just... It's impossible. There's billions of names there. So I fled. And then, most interestingly, just around the bottom there, by the Statue of Liberty, my wife had a hot dog ripped from her lips by a seagull. But do you know what? She had it in for me for the rest of the day, and I never really understood that. Like I was commanding the seagull.
It's a man's job to protect his bitch from seagulls. But the first thing that immigrants saw in America was a giant elephant-shaped brothel, which must have seemed promising on so many levels. How does the love bomb work?
I turn up and I get on with it. Isn't a love bomb a bottom noise that can be made whilst you're making love? You know, sometimes you're enjoying some love. And then all of a sudden, you know it's been awkward and you pretend you haven't heard it.
Rob, can I remind you of something?
I like the fact
your father is in the audience. Just sort of remind... Yeah,
well. He's up there going, that's my boy. You're putting Wales on the map, Robert.
This kind of sophisticated humour, you're quite right. So,
lets off something that makes everyone feel loved up. It's like a big ecstasy bomb.
Yeah, you're sort of right. In 1994, the Americans worked on the idea of a bomb that would contain an aphrodisiac. I quote of the plan here, it's been declassified 2 years ago. One distasteful but completely non-lethal example would be strong aphrodisiacs, especially if the chemical also caused homosexual behaviour. Oh, the idea was to make the troops...
That's the best example we could find. Homosexual behaviour.
What have you been putting in my tea, then?
The idea was that they would all start loving each other up instead of fighting. Did Queen Victoria think of Mr. Bean? Yes.
We are not amused.
Albert would have liked it because he was German, and the Germans are mad for Bean.
That's true.
I was on a Lufthansa flight once, and everyone was howling with laughter all around me with headphones in. I couldn't understand why, and I looked, and they were all watching Bean.
Yeah.
They'd love it.
There's a certain efficiency about it. Yeah, this does something and it falls over. It's very amusing. Before, he was walking in the straight lines and he walked into the door.
And that's
genius!
This is what happens when you break the rules.
Sometimes I stay up very late.
Can I take this off?
Of course you can. Of course you can take it off, old thing, yes. Is it uncomfortable?
The old lot.
It's Sean Locke!
I suspect it's not that Mr. Bean.
No,
Is there another Mr. Bean?
It was a man called John Bean, who was one of 3 people who tried to do something to Queen Victoria just in the 4th year of her reign, when she was a very slip of a thing.
Take her roughly behind the bike shed.
No, or indeed invent the bicycle and then invent the shed with...
Sell her tea towels door to door.
Kiss her on the mouth.
Quite the other.
Oh,
Kiss her on the arm.
Is that a request? Is that how you phrase it?
Well, if you're the Queen, you can get anything done, can't you, really? You there, kiss me on, all right.
As much as kissing someone is a friendly act, these were unfriendly
Surely
acts.
he didn't turn down her advances with knockers like this.
Oh, how could you?
Kicked her in the shins.
No, 3 times in
Tried to
1842
murder her.
they tried to assassinate her, tried to kill her. And there was one called Mr. Bean who had a gun and he filled it with wads of tobacco, which didn't really do much harm.
Was he trying to give her cancer? I'd like the idea of Mr. Bean trying to assassinate someone by clumsiness. You know? Just, making a cup of tea, and the whole house collapses, the palace falls. Everywhere he goes, it's basically a sort of tornado of disaster, isn't it?
Mayhem.
I was in a remote Australian sheep station once, and the bloke went, "Yeah, you ever watched that Mr. Bean?" And I went, "Yeah," and he goes, "That bloke's a bloody idiot."
That's fabulous.
He goes, "Yeah, he wouldn't last 5 minutes in the bush." well, no, clearly not.
Yeah. There you are. Why wouldn't a Russian family call their son power station or industrialization?
They're not names, are they?
Because they're not names.
No, they're not
They
names.
are. They are. They were. Whoop, yeah.
They are named.
I'm saying, why wouldn't they call their
Because
son?
they're girls' names.
Because they're girls' names is the
Girls'
right answer.
names.
Well done.
Well done. Power station is Elektrostancja, is a girl's name, and Industrializacja is also a girl's name. But if you had a boy, you could call him Combine, which is combine harvester. Or you could call him 23 Februaria, which is the 23rd of February. But this is actually a tradition in the Russic area, if you like. In Ukraine, their names like Noibie Batko, don't kill me, father. Would you believe?
Is it like the I don't know, it's a Red Indian thing where you come out of the wigwam, the first thing you'd see.
Right.
So they'd come out and see a power station.
Do you know what my husband's Native American name is?
What?
Sits in front of telly farting.
Imagine if you said it quickly, it sounds quite nice.
Yeah.
It does.
You call him
Sits in
Tsitsi.
telly
Said it
farting.
in a Russian accent.
Yeah, sits in front of telephone.
I like your sort of Camp German accent the best.
Oh, shut
And I'd
up.
like you to... Can you just do handy again for me?
What's my handy? What's the best thing to do in a falling lift?
Well, strictly speaking, I don't know, but I'd like to say that I once interviewed a man who had been in a falling lift, and we were investigating the theory, which I know I'll lose points for if I say it out loud, that by jumping up just before it hits the ground, you can sort of say... We were investigating the theory.
It's so very unfair to forfeit you there.
He was sort of very deadpan about it, and he had survived this experience, and he sort of said that maybe jumping up may have helped, but...
What about making everyone else in the lift lie down so that when you splat on the ground, you're sort of cushioned by that?
This is it. This is more or less what Clive was saying about the thing. It is basically lie on a fat person as you're going down.
No wonder everyone smiles
the
when I
best
get in a lift.
When you get in, you never lie down. It's a long journey.
Which I often do.
Sometimes they give the rather alarming device, bend your knees slightly just so that when you hit the ground your thigh bones don't go up through your abdomen, but that's pretty unpleasant.
Has this ever happened?
Yes and
the
no.
rope snaps and you say, would you mind lying down if I could lie on top?
You've only got a couple of seconds to think about
Hurtling
it.
to the ground. First of all, it is a very improbable scenario because multiple cables support every lift, each cable capable of holding the entire lift.
There's no
Plus,
rope, then.
if they were all to go, they have emergency brakes on them, and they have had since, the 1850s and 60s.
Don't you think they should tell people that write thrillers about that?
Yeah, they don't have strange little
They're
vents
always
that you can
plunging
climb
to
up
the
through.
ground,
Yeah.
aren't they?
But what is it when there are people who are frightened of being in lifts? What are they actually frightened of? Are they frightened of this happening?
Or getting stuck, a kind of claustrophobia mixed with that. In a skyscraper, the lift can achieve speeds of up to 120 miles an hour by the time it hits the bottom. But the problem with jumping is it might take 5 miles per hour off this 120 if you did it. You'd have to time it perfectly. Plus, lifts bounce because there are springs at the bottom. So you'd be in real trouble. You'd bang your head and everything. So, yeah, basically just get the impact cushioned. Who was the first king of both England and Scotland?
James I.
Sir. Is it Canute or something like that?
It's a little later than Canute, but you're right. It's pre-William I. Oh, dear me. That's not how the crown looks, by the way. Maybe when the Queen goes to a British Lions rugby match.
He normally has a couple of Coke cans.
No, because actually James I was the first one to have what was called the Triple Crown of Scotland, Wales, England and Ireland, but not the first to have the double throne of Scotland and England. Who was?
Ethelbert.
That kind of Athel.
King Engelbert. King Engelbert Humperdinck.
Athelstan, King Athelstan, 937 AD.
His hand. He's got a hand like a Simpson.
Incredible we didn't know that.
King Constantine II of Scotland submitted to him in 937, as did the kings of Cornwall, Wales and Northumbria, when he became the first king of all Britain, Athelstan. I would also have allowed Edward I, which is wrong, but not as wrong as James I. Where would you put your ladder if you wanted to get into space?
On top of the spaceship, on a rack. A red flag hanging off of it so some other spaceships don't follow you too closely.
It's a conceptual question. How about this? Up against a wall of silence.
You should have railings built round you and people would come and worship you as a kind of modern Buddha. You've got the look, I have to say.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a good look.
Thank you very much.
Buddha look.
Rural Buddhas.
Yeah.
So there, right? Wisdom and cheap cider.
You're saying where you put the ladder, you'd assume, I suppose, the obvious answer is you'd put it on the highest point, like Everest.
Yes, that wouldn't...
It'd be a bit bumpy, wouldn't it? You couldn't get a good foothold on it.
It's sometimes called a space ladder. It's more commonly called a space elevator. It is a genuine idea that has been worked on, and many people believe would have saved the space program an enormous amount of money in various ways, was to build a huge elevator that goes from Earth and is counterweighted at the other end and spin round incredibly fast. But it would be an equivalent of geostationary orbit at the end of it, and you would have elevators on it that would go up and down.
With a phone that didn't work in it. I'm stuck on the... I'm about 87,000 miles.
There's some
right
kind of
beyond Venus.
There's some kind of a door in the roof. Maybe we could...
It was Arthur C. Clarke who particularly believed in this thing, but NASA spent a lot of money on it. But the important point is you would have to do it on the equator, where the Earth goes at its fastest. Because it's the bit, you know, like the end of a record goes faster than the middle, obviously.
What about a series of trampolines? Like you have a huge trampoline, and then up higher up is another one about half a mile up, and then another one. So it's like a staircase of trampolines going up into space, and then there's a big bouncy castle at the top. And a bloke charging you £1, and you've got to take your shoes off. I'd tell you the best way to get into space, I would tell you, I've just realised it, and it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. I'm going to be so rich. Bubble. A bubble. Get in a bubble, just float up there.
Float up there.
One day.
I mean a big bubble. I'm not talking about... Not talking about those bubbles you see in the... That's not a bubble.
Stupid little one.
You call that a bubble, mate? You want to come and see my bubble? No. A big bubble, you get in the bubble and off you go.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Who wants in?
Me.
This is like the Dragon's Den for cranky ideas.
How about this? You could just imagine.
Oh, Bill. Huh? Bill, that's so beautiful.
It's the wisdom of the rural Buddha.
The Dalai Farmer.
Very good.
Excellent.
I've been struggling with that for about 5 minutes. Got to be something in this.
Oh, your synapses are firing beautifully. Use your synapses to fire people into space. Who first put 2 feet on the top of Mount Everest?
Sherpa Tenzing.
No! Oh, dear.
Edmund Hillary. So what, you're saying they hopped up there?
Cliff Richard.
Amazingly, we didn't guess you might say that.
Does it mean someone put an extra rock up there, make it 2 feet higher?
They made it 2 feet higher in a very extraordinary way. How high is...
Raised it from the bottom.
29.
That would be laborious. Yeah. How high is Mount Everest?
29,028 feet.
You're absolutely right down to the last foot. Since 1955, that has been the accepted height of Mount Everest.
It used to be 29,002 feet.
Exactly. But this is very good. But
the applause on What's My Line?
it was... You're getting warmer.
I think it's a man.
Yeah.
Let's see whose house it is. So it's Radhanat Sikdar was a mathematician from Bengal who was the first to identify Everest, which used to be known as Peak 15, as the world's highest mountain. And this was in 1852. He used a theodolite from 150 miles away, and he measured it to be exactly 29,000 feet. Exactly 29,000. And he thought no one would believe him. They would think he just rounded up and said, oh, it's about 29,000, you know. But he really... And so he was so annoyed by the fact that it was exactly 29,000, he added 2 feet so that it looked as if he was terribly precise.
Right, yeah.
So he was quite literally the first man to put 2 feet on yeah, a silly question, I grant you, but it elicited the fact that you knew the 2 heights that were known of Everest.
Yeah. And
Most
they will get you work anywhere in the world, those 2 facts. You can travel anywhere and just say, I know 2 things about Everest.
And George Everest, who was he? Why was the mountain named after him?
He kept changing his height.
He was the Surveyor General of India at the time it happened. And in his honour, they called it Mount Everest. But even though it's named after him, it's still wrong to call it Mount Everest. Why would that be?
Because it's not a mountain, it's a hill.
No, it is. If anything's a mountain, I think we can say it is. No, we shouldn't call it Mount Everest because he didn't pronounce his name Everest. He pronounced it Everest.
Everest.
Everest. It should be Mount
George Everest.
George Everest. Yeah. I think I'm right in saying that Churchill's nanny was called Everest.
Nanny Everest.
Yeah.
The tallest nanny.
Nanny! Where are you most likely to get bitten by a vampire?
A 19th century novel.
Pinewood Studios.
Very good. Good answer.
Outside your own house.
Where on the body?
Well, it would have to be some sort of protrusion where blood gathers and is easily accessible through the bedclothes, probably the elbow.
What about in a dark tunnel?
No, but it is a protuberance, as Jimmy pointed out. Big toe.
Big toe?
Big toe is the most likely place. There are a number of misconceptions about vampire bats, obviously, but, I mean, we're talking about real vampire bats.
Well, who does your picture?
Aren't they pretty?
Oh, he's a nasty-looking one, isn't he?
That is a really ugly
Tell you what, that Gary Oldman is a hell of an actor. It's like he really transforms, doesn't he?
Amongst vampire bats, is he regarded as a bit of a looker?
Yeah. If Yoda had accepted the dark side, that's how he would have looked. Yeah. But,
That's a very suave-looking bat. Hello.
Would you mind awfully if I nipped you on the toe?
Well, I'm having a few friends over. Would you like a liqueur?
what do they do? How do they ingest their blood? I mean, what do they do?
They bite and sniff it up, swallow it, lick it, slurp it, hide it. Store it, draw it
Who
off
do
and
you think
decant
you are?
it. Decant it.
Laid down for a couple of years.
With the syringe. I mean, they're quite hygienic animals. Small bit of cotton wool, syringe, and then you get a cup of tea and a biscuit. That's how you know you've been bitten.
And a little tiny little plaster.
They do. You're quite right in one sense. They do an anticoagulant and a painkiller, so you're unlikely to know you've been bitten. What they do is they open the skin and the vein, and then they lap at it like a cat. Like that.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think a love bomb may have gone off.
Stephen doesn't need a love house bomb to behave like that, you know.
Is it getting hot in here?
Yes, the most likely place to get bitten by a vampire is in the big toe. Suppose you shaved a lion and a tiger till they were both as bald as an egg. How would you tell which was which? Fingers on buzzers for this. Yes.
The tiger would be exactly the same size, but the lion would be the size of a squirrel, because it's mainly hair.
Mane and hair. It's a good thought. There is a more obvious way of telling. If you stripped them until they were just skeletons, it would be actually incredibly hard to tell. Only a real expert would know which was a lion skeleton and a tiger. They're almost identical. But if you were just to shave them until they're completely bald, you would know. And it's a rather odd thing.
Stripy skin?
Yes, the tiger would have stripes. It has stripy skin as well as stripy fur. And that's true of leopards and jaguars. So the lion would just be bald and white, and the tiger would have the stripes.
I took my nephews to London Zoo because a friend of ours is a zookeeper there, and she can get you in sort of the back. We wanted to see a lion, and they said there's some mesh, there's small mesh and big mesh. You must stand on the side where the big mesh is. Don't go near the small mesh. Stay where the big mesh is. Do you understand? And the kids went... We just went in, and my nephew turned to me and said, "What's mesh?"
I was in Brazil. I went into an enclosure with a jaguar, and this handler, he said, he was Brazilian, and he said to me, very important is always approach from the front. Like that, and I went, right, OK, and I just was sort of like getting closer to the front of it, and then he said, oh, no, sorry, never. Sorry. My English.
Never and always.
Never and always. We lose a lot like that.
Anyway, that's true. Tigers are stripy even under their fur. I want to know what Winterval is. Does Winterval mean anything to you? Have you heard of it? Yes.
Political correctness gone mad.
It is a special law. If you get every one of these, then they're completely null and void.
But no, it's this typically British thing. I can guarantee, probably, if you're reading a newspaper today, round about Christmas, there will be some tiresome old fart who will have written about, you know, there aren't any more office parties, and for political correctness reasons, there are no decorations in offices, and they're calling it Winterval so as not to offend minority religions. It's absolute bollocks. It just isn't true. 95% of all offices are decorated. There have been more office parties year on year, every year. And Winterval was simply a promotional campaign. It was nothing to do with...
I remember the Birmingham City Council.
Birmingham City Council,
My brother was on the phone to me. He's going, yeah, bloody Birmingham City Council, the Winterval, the PC, gone mad.
And it's all nonsense. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was a campaign for local businesses. A point is, despite what you're probably going to read in your newspapers, as I say, from hoary, boring old... It's your fault for reading the Daily Mail, let me put it Contrary. What's your chances of survival in a plane crash?
I'm guessing it's going to be one of these where there are loads and loads and loads of plane crashes, but usually no one dies.
Yeah, it's more or less true.
So statistically...
Yeah. I imagine it swings on the whistle that you get on the life jacket. I think that's probably what saves the lives. The people, and if it's that kind of plane crash that's never happened, where the plane lightly bobs onto the water, everyone gets out nicely, takes their high heels off, inflates the thing, tops it up, and then, oh, help doesn't seem to have come. I know. Oh, that's all right. Here comes the American
It does
Army
rather
now.
rely on someone having quite selective hearing and going, I didn't hear that plane go down, but...
Imagine anything more... I can't imagine anything more pathetic.
What if there's
a load of air travellers bobbing along in the water going, beep, beep, beep.
What they should give is everyone gets a different note.
Yeah.
And you get a little songbook.
Well, wouldn't it be tragic, though, if you were playing a little song and one of the notes didn't go off and you went, didn't make it?
Didn't make it.
Oh, dear.
I see Dave's been eaten by sharks. We're going to have to play chopsticks.
Yeah. Let's do South Pacific. We can do the show right here.
I heard great an urban legend about the brace position. Someone told me that the reason they want you to put your head between your legs is so to preserve the dental record.
I don't
Yeah,
think it's true.
I heard that as well. And actually, I don't know why they don't just tell people that. You know, in the unlikely event of your death, I'm sure you'll all agree you'd like to be identified.
Leave.
Bite down hard on your own armrest.
Now, what happens if you eat nothing but rabbit?
Oh.
Yes.
I'd imagine eventually, if you eat enough of it, your feet become lucky.
Very sweet. I like it.
Oh,
Any other thoughts? Yeah.
you die.
Why so?
It's a very nothing meat.
It's full of protein, but there's really very little oil and very little
Do
vitamin.
your children kill you? Because you come home yet again and go, sorry, Fluffy's passed away. I was giving her a lovely hot bath with some onions and carrots, and she slipped off, I'm afraid.
Do you have really bad nightmares that there's a compulsory purchase order on your street and you get very tense and you start going, they're coming, they're coming, and people start singing Bright Eyes, and then a bulldozer turns up and kills your nan?
Oh, that's not what I've got on the card, amazingly. Nothing about nans. Phil is right. Phil has given the answer.
Has he?
Die.
You die?
The Hudson's Bay Company recorded cases of trappers dying who were feasting plentifully on rabbit. They were eating lots of it. The more they ate, in fact, the sooner they died. Why do you think that was?
Were the rabbits cursed?
No. No, the reason is that you use vitamins and minerals in order to digest. So the more you eat, the more of your own vitamins and minerals you're using up, which you then excrete, and so the faster you die of malnutrition. And there were many cases of these trappers dying, and all they had to have was a tiny bit of vegetables, and they would have survived. But they thought, well, we're eating rabbit, it's full of protein, as it is indeed.
My dad killed my pet rabbit and fed it to me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Perhaps he was trying to kill you, Johnny.
Well, the 39 other rabbits he'd bought him.
Well, I'm very sorry that your little rabbit died.
No, you're not.
Seems to me to explain a great deal. Now, at this point in our Euro quiz, regulations require us to have a Call My Euro Bluff round. So, let's play Call My Euro Bluff. Good evening and welcome. No, hush, Tish and Pibble. Who should we start? We'll start with David. David, give us some Euro regulation.
It's illegal to sell bananas if they're too curvy.
What do we think? Anyone got a theory about that?
I think that's true.
It's quite a well-known Euro regulation, straight bananas.
It's utter arse of the highest order.
So you're saying a bluff, are you? Well, what do you feel?
I seem to recall this is one of those things that the Daily Mail would suddenly go, how dare they say our bananas can't be bendy? Why, it's bendy bananas made this country what it is.
Yeah.
Balls.
Yeah, you think it's balls. Would you like to reveal, then?
Balls.
It's a bluff.
It's just you just have to say how big they are, which is fair enough, because you don't. Otherwise, people are selling tiny pea-sized bananas.
And the clincher is the current EU standards are identical to the pre-existing British ones and the United Nations ones and the OECD ones. I mean, nothing has changed. Nothing is new, except, as you say, the ability of the press to make things up and scare us that our bananas are going to be straightened. So, it's become rather political and rather exciting. Tara, what is yours?
OK, well, this actually is true. Trawlermen will soon be required to wear hairnets whilst fishing.
Is this because they're handling food? And
It's exactly the point is to keep them clean right from the very start. So that's why
convincing stuff? What do we feel?
Well, it makes practical sense as well, of course, because the hairnet could also maybe catch any smaller fish, like, you know, whitebait or scampi that might get in the hair, and then you just, at the end of the day, oh, there's another, that's dinner.
Yeah, they're used to handling nets. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know they wear hard hats now at Smithfield Market, and they never had to. They're always making people put things on their heads.
Good point. I like that. Good. What do you feel, Phil?
Yes.
You think it's true as well. So most people think this is true. Come, demonstrate, would tell us, put us out of our misery. It's a bluff as well. It's not true. In fact, I quote Richard Littlejohn. He goes, "Oh, what a circus. The safety Nazis have forced fishermen to wear hairnets. You couldn't make it up." Well, actually, oddly enough, Richard, you could and you did.
It wasn't as if that Little John didn't make that up.
No, he didn't, in fact.
It was made up by British journalists in a bar in Brussels.
Yeah, absolutely
who tried to run to see, will people fall for this?
Yeah.
And the British press fell for it completely.
It's because they know that people love their little 5 minutes of snorting anger over the breakfast. Bloody people, why the God, it's so...
It's ridiculous. You don't take an active interest in how your country's run for just 45 years, and look what happened.
What were the first words spoken from the surface of the moon? How appropriate, Sean.
Hello? Can you hear me?
It was... It was the clangers, was it?
It's the
Who got there
clangers.
first?
But it wasn't one small step for man, because he hadn't gone on yet.
Very true. Very good. So what else was it?
He was like, "Come on down, Neil, it's fine." It's fine, don't worry about it. What's the big deal?
Golf club.
Yeah.
Great to be here in Philadelphia. I mean, the moon.
Well, let's sort out who said it. Who said the first human words uttered on the surface of the moon?
Neil Armstrong.
No.
Buzz Aldrin.
Yes, it was Buzz. He was in charge of the steering of the module as it landed, and 102 hours, 45 minutes and 25 seconds in, he was saying 4 forward, 4 forward, drifting to the right a little. That's good, that's good. Something garbled, and then contact light. And the contact light that showed they had landed was on. Those were the first words spoken. Not the eagle has landed, and certainly not small
This is
step.
the moon. This is the end of the line. Please. Please make sure you have all your bags and all your personal possessions.
What do you know about Buzz Aldrin otherwise?
His dad had a sense of humour.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, he called him Buzz.
Ah, but he didn't. He called him Edward Eugene Aldrin Jr.
Yes.
His sister...
Still, I think I'm right, actually.
His sister called him Buzz, because she couldn't say brother, so she'd say Buzzer, and he became Buzz. He eventually made it his legal name.
He had the hand of a monkey.
Very good. What was his mother's maiden name? Surely you know that.
Smith, Brown, Jones.
Moon. Moon is the right answer. Well done.
Did you know that?
Why was it hard for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle?
Eyes to the right.
This is because it was a gate, wasn't it? It was a gate.
No. Christ, if you remember, says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God.
Of course, and these were the days before liquidizers.
Yeah.
So there was no chance of pureeing up the thing and getting a straw. And I mean, it would be a mess, but it would be doable, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, because remember, this is a rich man we're talking about. He would have people to
He'd
do
have this
all
for
the
him.
white
goods,
Yeah.
wouldn't he? You know, if there's anything.
Obviously, what happened is a lot of rich men read the Bible and thought, that can't be right, surely. So there are 2 get-out clauses. One was this idea that there was an eye of the needle gate
Wasn't
in
it?
Jerusalem city walls, but there is absolutely no contemporary historical or archaeological evidence.
Well, actually, in biblical times, women's hands were significantly bigger than they are today. So a needle's eye could be 40 or 50 foot across. Enormous.
You still want that rich man to get through, don't you?
Well, the thing is, what someone told me, I might say, at my bloody school,
Yes.
which is still going, and it turns out it's talking bullshit.
I bet it was a private school.
Private school.
Where they don't like to get on the wrong
said
side of rich people.
There are 2 sorts of gate to get into cities in those days. One that was quite wide, one that was quite narrow, and a fully laden camel couldn't squeeze through quite a narrow gate, and those were look all eyes of needles. And what Jesus wasn't doing was being sort of sarky and going, yeah, it's about as easy for a rich man to get into heaven as to get a planet into a shoe. He was actually saying that if the camel was no longer fully laden, hence the wealth had been, dumped somewhere, then the camel went in easy as
I
you
don't know
like.
how rich you are if all your stuff is on the back of one camel.
But it depends if it's diamonds.
Yeah, damn
really
rich.
rich. They hadn't found all the South African diamond mines then, so diamonds worth even more.
Yeah, good point.
The coronation of George IV, all the diamonds in the crown jewels were hired. The King of England wasn't rich enough to own enough diamonds for one poxy coronation. That's how expensive diamonds
Can you
were.
hire
now
diamonds?
any sort of rap star's got
Of course
loads.
you can. At the Oscars, all the actors hire diamonds.
That would be the Everest of unsure engagements, wouldn't it? I've just rented this for a week. Let's see how things go. Let's wait till after you put
But
out.
no, you're absolutely right, David. That is precisely what...
Jesus was being
Jesus
sarcastic.
meant exactly what he said.
Should have just said,
Yeah.
you can't. If you're rich, you're going to hell.
Yeah. But the first animals to be herded for food. Yes.
Well, the first ones would have been an experiment, so it would have been guinea pigs.
Very good, very good.
Goats.
Not goats. Yes.
Chickens.
Oh, no, not chickens.
Chicken soldier.
I've done it again.
With the letters.
Yes, Johnny.
T-Rexes.
Oh!
Pterodactyls.
No.
Godzilla.
If I tell you the Latin...
Was it
Eggs!
Oh, the
eggs! Eggs! They were easy to move around the field.
No.
You could be a very lazy shepherd.
Shall I tell you the Latin name of that help? Helix, helix.
Helix, helix.
They've got a spiral on them. So the audience knows.
Snails.
Thank you, audience, for telling Alan.
They herded snails. That must have taken ages.
You think? Absolutely.
All you had to do was build a wall.
Snail farming seems to date back to 10,700 BC. The earliest things archaeologists have ever found that we appeared to farm.
Sorry, hang on. An archaeologist discovered that. So he's
Yes.
on a dig site and he found a snail and he went, oh, look, they must
No,
have...
that's not quite really.
I found a tiny snail farm. Send more money, mother.
So, in all seriousness, they dug up a bunch of snails and went, they must have been
I
farmed.
have proof.
No, they obviously wouldn't just say that, would they? Say, oh, we found some snail shells, therefore it's a farm. Obviously, one assumes
They found a
that as
tiny
archaeologists...
plastic fence and
That's
some
it.
tiny plastic animals.
Exactly, and
And,
some sheepdog bones near it.
Yeah, and a die-cast man with a whistle gun.
Exactly right. Tell me about snails' sex lives.
They do it by themselves, don't they?
They're all hermaphrodites.
Wow.
Did they find some spinach, that someone has grown for the first time ever successfully and then just hang around there, leaving the mess? Like dirty snail teenagers.
Possibly. They do dance and kiss for up to 20 hours before sex.
I know they do, but, why do it on the plant?
Yeah. Good.
It's my first harvest.
Do you know, they have an optional...
You
they have
fork out on a grow bag and you think life's going to be different, don't you?
Johnny. Snails have an optional sexual organ. Do you know what it's called? Which they can use for sex, but they don't always because it's quite dangerous.
A second arse.
The vaginas.
Second arse. It's called a love dart, actually.
The love dart.
Yes.
Well, that's a happy coincidence.
Yeah. It's actually more like a 7 to 11 millimetre dagger.
Well, exactly. This is uncanny.
It releases chemicals to stimulate the stabbed mate, so they stab their mate with the love dart.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. It can result in injury if carried out inaccurately.
Of course.
But use of the dart doubles... Exactly.
Should have done it in
Sounds like an
daylight.
episode of Midsummer Murders.
It does, doesn't it? It does double the chance of offspring, though, using the love dart. This mannequin piss is the symbol of Brussels, of course. Sometimes they dress her up, or him up, I should say, as Elvis, and sometimes it pees beer. What's it all about?
I've seen it. It's the most unimpressive thing, apart from that mermaid in Copenhagen, which is also shite. Which it's all these signs, and it's just it's like yay big.
Yeah.
In a
Here we are. I've got a model of it.
And it's actually not that scaled down. That much.
In theory, this is a working one, I believe. That's pretty good, isn't it? How's that? We like. Very nice indeed.
He's drinking piss!
It's good enough for Sarah Miles, it's good enough for me. There is a theory...
Anything to do with elephants?
Oh, interesting. No. But it's good that you're thinking. One of the theories is that Brussels was under siege and the enemy were laying explosives around the city walls, and a little boy saw this and peed on the fuses, thus saving the city, and so he's memorialised.
I did that once and blew the electricity in the house.
There's another theory that it was the 2-year-old Duke Godfried and his troops put him up in a tree when they were having a battle in a basket, and from there he urinated on the enemies and they lost the battle. That was in 1142.
They stuck the crown prince or whatever in a tree that was just like the enemies were just underneath the tree. So they threw a rock at the tree, right?
How long has that statue been there? Do you know?
200 years. 120 years. 90 years.
That's the point. It's a lot older than you might think. It's 14th century. 1388, there's been a pissing boy.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still works.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You get up there with a pipe cleaner every Sunday.
It's been stolen 7 times.
7 times?
7 times. In 1817, one of the thieves who stole it got 20 years hard labour. In 1978, they got let off with a warning.
No one ever gets 20 years easy work, do they? It's all the labour's hard labour.
Yes.
Don't say hard labour, it's just rubbing it in. We know it's labour, you know.
Yeah, it's never exactly.
Not saying 20 years
20
temping.
Working in a call centre.
Yeah.
So, nobody knows for sure why Brussels chooses to identify with an incontinent 5-year-old. Bon chance to them, however. How many times a year did Queen Elizabeth I of England have a bath?
Never. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times.
Thanks for that. That was your once.
See, it was thought indecent to immerse oneself in water.
Well, that is an actual photograph of her taking a bath. She actually was considered rather pernickety about her thing. She 4 times a year at least, she bathed. As the old joke says, even if she didn't need one. In medieval England, though, baths were much more popular than we suppose. There are bathhouses in every town, but it was really the monks who didn't like it because they thought it led on to lewd behaviour.
In fact, they knew it led on.
Well, they knew it. Let's hear how you all intend to end it all. And Dara goes. And Jimmy goes. Doon goes. And Alan goes. Excellent. Great. Thank you, Alan. Superb. I think I detected the hand of the late, great Dudley Moore in your buzzer there. Now, that brings us to our final question. What were the last words of General Sedgwick in the wilderness of Spotsylvania?
He hasn't got a mouth. So there weren't any words at all, unless he wrote them down.
In a convenient bubble that he carried around with him.
Maybe had a little notebook of bubble-shaped things. And he just
I'll tell you that the year is 1864. What war was going on then?
Franco-Prussian War.
That was a tiny bit later.
The 100 years, 30 years, 25 years.
Civil, American Civil War.
The American Civil War. So we're talking about a... Yeah, well done. Thank you for cutting that
The
off.
American Civil War.
It is the American Civil War.
What is house dust mostly composed of?
Every little...
Skin.
No! No, it's a myth, I'm afraid. It's a myth.
Rust.
Rust. I don't think mostly of rust, no. Well,
if you live in an iron house,
yes,
like me,
that's rust. Animals, insects.
Yeah, a lot.
Bits of smashed badgers. Smashed badgers is coming up.
No, dust mites. You didn't really say dust mites.
I said smashed badgers.
No,
Clive's denying it, but
The camera was on Jeremy. I said nothing. I said.
You sneak.
I said dust might be the sort of stuff you find in your house, but it doesn't compare.
Well, the fact is, what Vic said is actually pretty true, that it obviously varies from country to country, house to house, even room to room, as well as varying by season and in response to lifestyles. Whether you have a pet, in other words, and things like that, how often you clean, whether you open the windows a lot. But generally speaking, you will find soil, sand, pollen, soot, brick, concrete dust, clothing, carpet fibres, fungal spores, plant parts, dried cells of animal hair, skin and feathers, cigarette and wood smoke, dust mites eventually, bits of dead insects, rat and mouse droppings, industrial pollutants, pesticides, tiny bits of plastic, PVC and vinyl, flour and crumbs, and good old-fashioned dirt.
So no smashed badgers, then?
Not one!
How much of it is skin?
A small percentage, apparently. Mattress manufacturers like to put around the idea that half the weight of a mattress is made up of dead mites and skin and other detritus. It's absolute nonsense.
They're making it up.
Yeah.
Well, people trying to sell you things by making up stuff.
Who would believe it?
This is
Who
unbelievable.
would have believed it? Anyway, moving on. Very little house dust is in fact made of human skin. It's mostly good old dirt. It's the highest mountain in Europe. Yeah.
Mont Blanc.
Oh! Sorry you said that. No, it isn't. It isn't.
Yes, it is.
No. It does begin with an E, if that's any help.
Enormo Blanc.
Very good.
Monte Bianco.
Not the Eiger, no.
Etna.
Oh, hello. Eiger. Did you say Etna?
Yeah.
Etna, eh? No, indeed.
It's some island. It's from the bottom of the sea, if you measure. No,
That's Etna, isn't it, or Stromboli? No, it's not. It's actually right on the borders of Europe, but it does count as Europe. It's definitely Europe, isn't it?
Is it somewhere in the Caucasus?
It is in the Caucasus.
Oh, which of the mountain names of the Caucasus?
Mount Elbrus is the answer. Mount Elbrus. It's where Prometheus was supposedly chained for daring to steal fire from heaven, and he had his liver pecked out every day by vultures as punishment. Ooh. Yes, that's gotta hurt.
You want to get it over with at the beginning of the day.
Yes, you would. 100 people attempt to climb the summit every day in the summer season, when it's not too cold, and about 30-odd die every year.
Do you know that 1 in 8 of people who try to climb Everest die?
Really? That's a high attrition rate, isn't it?
Not good, is it?
Not good, not good at all.
You get acute mountain sickness because you can't breathe. So your stomach won't accept food, so you start throwing up. Apparently there are signs all the way up saying, if you are throwing up and you have a headache, go back.
Yeah.
But people don't.
So when you're putting your party together to go up Everest, just, if there's 7 of you, just get someone you don't like.
Yeah.
Preferably with asthma. Lead on, Wheezy.
In 1997, it was a Land Rover Defender that drove to the very top of Mount Everest, which is a high mountain. It's 18,510 feet.
It's also a very busy mountain for people climbing it, all of whom must have been thrilled to see some guy drive past.
Can we tell who is whose child just by looking at their ears?
That was a beautiful weekend. Presumably, the parents of the child would be going, step away from my child, stop looking at its ears.
Well, yes, there is that.
On that day, I had to have a child's head on my body all day.
Was it exhausting?
I tell you what, I've got a cracking pair of tits.
So the Atkins is working then. I feel really left out.
I'm sorry.
Can I be like the dog or something?
Actually, though, David, you could also be the parent of that child. And indeed, Alan and Phil could be your parents. In terms of ears, how will we know that, though? What is it about your ears that is particular? It's very odd that all four of you, have very unusual ears. Or not very unusual, but less than average.
Is it that
The
you
lobe
length thing?
Yeah. It's a lobe thing. Your lobes are all attached. They don't hang.
Attached? Yeah, what, you mean they're not sort of over there somewhere?
No, they're called attached lobes.
Oh,
they
no.
go straight down. You don't have a little actual lobe.
You have a lobe.
Yeah.
You have a lobe, don't
A
you?
little flappy lobe, I can do that.
Yeah. Oh, stop it! Stop it!
It's more common to have a lobe than not to, in fact. In the audience, can you put your hands up if you've got, like me, a little flappy lobe? Freaks! There you see. And could you put your hands up if you haven't, if you're like those? Yes, you see. It's a bit like eye colour. It's a dominant and recessive gene thing, so that if you both have attached lobes as your mother and father, then your child must have attached lobes too.
So if a family are watching this and they think, well, hang on, ours hasn't.
Yeah. I'm afraid it's a dead giveaway. Yeah.
Wow, this is turning into Kilroy. Well done.
Yeah. Macadamia nuts are not picked from trees, but are collected from the ground, where they've been dropping onto the ground, you see. So now, what kind of dropping would you search for the tasty and nutritious mongongo nut in?
I don't know, but macadamia sounds like a Scottish university.
Very good. Clever.
Macadamia.
Yeah, absolutely. Where would you find a mongongo nut?
Probably the Congo.
In Africa, I would say.
In Africa,
I'm going Africa. Yeah. Are they in monkey poo?
No, they're not in monkey poo.
Are they in something's business, though?
They are found in something's business.
Yes!
Well done. I suspect the points will be shared between you. You're absolutely right.
Elephant dung is full of nuts.
It is, and it takes a week for them to pass through their bodies.
Oh, imagine that.
Oh. Yeah, and it's... there it is.
See a Friday.
They look like they're artists and about to sing.
Yes. Very good. Well, the fact is, yes, they do go through the elephant system, where they remain intact, and they are then gathered.
Who first gathered that nut?
I've no idea. I guess they saw it drying in the dung.
So, do we know what they taste like?
The mongongo nuts, yes. They're like a macadamia. They're a bit more like a cashew, apparently. But they're related to the macadamia.
I like cashews.
I would love to serve that at Christmas, just a big pile of elephant poo. Watch the family work their way through it going, don't spoil your dinner. Everyone sat around the table smelling of shit.
It's a lovely Christmas.
Well, he puts out the finest nuts. I hear he gathers them himself.
Indeed. So, the mongongo nut is collected from piles of elephant droppings. The best way to get from the Eiffel Tower to the Louvre without seeing any French people.
Underwater, look, just go straight along the river.
What about if you went at lunchtime?
Yeah?
Because they're all stuffing their faces with pate, aren't they? You could just... Sorry, at lunch. They all still break for lunch, don't they? Apart from the tourists.
With your eyes shut. Do it with your eyes shut. Ha-ha! Ha-ha! Wear a blindfold and say, where's the Louvre? Show me the Louvre! people might say, no point, it's all art. So I want to experience the ambience without seeing any of you Frenchies.
A big long line that you would fly down
From the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower.
That would... Yeah, right, good. No, I mean, in a way, you were very close, Alan. We were trying to get you to talk about the remarkable sewage system of Paris. Their sewers echo their streets exactly. So under the Champs-Élysées, there's a sewer as wide as it, called the Champs-Élysées. They even have street signs in the sewers for the streets, and all the side streets, and at every intersection, they have the street names. So if you knew Paris above ground, you'd never get lost. You could walk along these wonderful sewers.
Boulevards.
It's smelly, obviously.
Cafes.
There they are. They're rather fine examples of the art of the sewer maker. And they used to have excursions. Right up until 1975, you could get a boat every last Thursday and Saturday of the month, and you would...
full of shit.
You'd have to really hate French people to do that, though, wouldn't you?
There we are, look. There they are. Here are some turds from the deuxième côté. On the left.
How do you think they clean them?
Oh,
What, the people?
No. The sewers.
Everyone has to flush their toilet at once with no poo in it.
I love the way your mind works, Alan.
I'd probably do it, though.
And I use the word works quite wrongly. So... Actually, could you press your buzzer, Rich?
It's a hint.
They roll a giant cleaning ball
Yes,
down it.
well done. Wow. Good cultural
I was going to
reference
suggest
getting
they
there.
trained elephants and put bristles over their back and led them.
That would work. No, it's a big ball that scrapes the side. They send the ball down with a great whoosh of water, and it cleans the sides and works very well, apparently.